everybody. Thanks for being here. Thanks for coming to see. What we're going to do next is you guys doing something, and we're actually going to do something we call the Dyad exercise. So what I'm going to ask you to do is get into pairs, and what I'd like you to do is within your pairs number yourselves number 1 and number 2. What we'd like number 1 to do is think of a positive experience that they've had recently. It doesn't have to be a work experience. It could be a nice meal you went for. It could be something at home. And what we'd like you to do is to talk to your partner about it for 2 minutes. And what we'd like your partner to do, that's number 2, is actually write down the positive words that you hear them saying. Okay? After those 2 minutes, what we're going to do is switch around, and number 2 is going to talk, and number 1 is going to write. Okay? So I'll just finish, guys. So in that second exercise, number 2 is going to describe a negative experience. Okay? Again, it doesn't have to be work, but number 1 will write down the more negative words sort of that come associated with the description. Does that make sense? Okay, so we'll give you 2 minutes and I'll tell you to swap over, okay? Okay, so in no particular order, everybody contributing. Let's go through our positive experience first. You can shout them out, raise your hands, just give us some of your words. It's kept anonymous because we just want your words, we don't want your experience, okay? Yep. Happy. Great, lovely start. Anybody else? Come on, surely there's more positive words than just happy. What was that? Shout louder. Fancy. 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 Lovely. Any more? Yeah? Beautiful. Thank you. Any more? Great. 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 Good. Yeah. Welcoming. I like that. That's good. Any more? Wonderful. Wonderful. Any more? Lovely. Lovely, lovely, lovely. Any more? Yeah? Fantastic. Fantastic. Yeah. Okay. Okay. So you get the idea? Okay? So let's think about our negative or challenging experience. What words were used? What words did you hear during that experience? Exhausted. Helpless. Is that right? Okay. Sad. Stressed. Disappointed. Thank you, Mosi. Difficulties. Yeah. Any? Frustrated. Tough. You're going better with the negative than the positive. Any more? Lost. I like it. Lost. Okay. Good. Delayed. Failed. Oh, right, yeah, okay. Enough. Okay. So, what was the point of us getting you to do that exercise and speaking about your experiences was to try and highlight to you that when we think about these challenging experiences, these more negative ones, we're thinking more about this concept of burnout. But it's not all doom and gloom, and what we want to highlight to you that there is another end of the spectrum, there's another side of the coin, and that's this concept of engagement. When we think about engagement, let's just think about it very simply, and we think about it being someone who's involved with what they're doing, who's satisfied by what they do, and who's also committed to what they do. And in the workplace, commitment means that we're committed to continue to work hard, to continue to be engaged and involved with our work. What we then can start to think about is that we think in the literature of burnout and engagement on a spectrum, and them being at either ends of those poles. And when Grace talked to us about those 3 dimensions of burnout, we can see them, it's all shifted in the middle, those being emotional exhaustion, depersonalization, and personal accomplishment and lack of that. And what we see that we have exhaustion at one end, we have energy at the other in relation to that first. In relation to the second, it's all shifted, but at the other end, we've got people who have a sense of accomplishment within what they're doing, and in relation to the efficacy, has it all shifted? Sorry, the one above is instead of feeling negative, you feel positive and supported and involved, and then instead of feeling sort of not having effectiveness in your workplace, actually you feel a sense of accomplishment. Okay. And what we're saying is that not everybody's going to fit in the horrible burnt out section, or not everyone's going to fit in that engaged section, but actually in reality we probably sit somewhere in the middle. And actually, there's things that will maybe vary where we sit. So that may simply be time, that over time we feel more burnt out or we feel more engaged through different experiences, or that actually within different situations within our work environment we might actually feel more burnt out in certain roles and more engaged in others. So we might love our research and feel very engaged and motivated towards that, but actually we feel tiresome of the more clinical commitments that we have to do on the ward rounds in the day. And then to take it beyond the work environment, we can use these concepts in our own lives. So we may feel very engaged and very motivated at home, but actually in the work environment we feel burnt out, or vice versa. Okay? So it's not all doom and gloom. We're going to try and push you towards the engagement side. And just thinking of it a bit more in relation to the work environment, we've got these 6 areas of work life that relate to our burnout and engagement continuum. And we think of those in relation to workload, so are we completely overburdened with all the work, or do we have control over how much work that we do, how many clinical commitments we have? That links into control as well. If we think about reward, do we feel rewarded in the environment that we have? Do we feel satisfied by that? You know, do we come to the grand round and everybody interacts with us, or does everyone boo and hiss at us? Do we feel rewarded after that experience? Community really relates to the team that you work within. So do you get on well with your team? Do you feel valued as a team member? Do you have good communications with your team? Do you think they listen to what you feel about your working life? Or the other side of that, do you feel actually quite isolated within the team that you work within? Making sure that your environment is fair and that the values that you have are thought of being values of others, and that your work therefore is meaningful. So we can think about these 6 areas. What we're going to do is come back and think about this a bit more in due course. And I think what I do now is I hand over to Sam, who's going to talk to us about some of the factors that might put us at risk of burnout.